What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, Dalton, Wasserman here with you guys for a very special episode. Dalton, today we are talking about the PFF 50. It's the 50 best players that we think going into the 2025 NFL season. How you feeling, my friend?
I feel good about it. Look, when you talk about a list like this, obviously everybody has their own opinion of it, and we have ours. And
no, I'm sure. I'm sure the comments and the reaction is going to be civil. I'm sure that there's going to be no fandom involved at all whatsoever, here on these rankings. I'm sure it'll be totally fine.
Absolutely. You do the best you can without any bias whatsoever, right? That's the entire idea. We have the data, we have the numbers, and this is what comes out, right? And it's a committee of people. We got a lot of opinions around the building, a lot of people, even up to, this week I was talking to some people in our building. We still had some disagreements about it, but we have to come up with one list. And this is what it's going to be.
And this is the list.
And it was a lot of fun to put together.
It was fun to put together because it's sort of a culmination of a lot of things. Like, we do our position rankings going into the season, and it's sort of the same criteria. These lists, you can go about it in many different ways, right? It's like, okay, this is firmly, we're ranking what these guys were in the 2024 season, so last season. But the rankings that we do are often with a forward-facing type of a thing. So there's a lot of things that go into that. Of course, the respect for what have you done for me lately goes into this with some of these players. But I think at PFF, it's important to remember, data is always more rooted correctly the larger the sample size. So, of course, we don't want to take away or mitigate a great year that somebody might have had last season, but you're going to hear us throughout this show as we kind of talk about these rankings and these players, is we're going to talk a lot about 2-year, 3-year, 5-year sample sizes with some of these players. And, man, if they have elite grades with 3- and 5-year sample sizes, it's hard to, maybe even if they had a bad 2024, really put them down too much, because you just say, man, history tells us, the number tells us, they're going to bounce back. They are an elite football player.
Absolutely, and that's the fun part about it, and just the sheer depth of data that we have, that you can paint whatever picture, that maybe whatever picture you want to, but there's a different picture when you look at 1 year, even smaller during the season, 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, like something like that, and then you take a 3, 4, 5 year sample size, and look, the guys on this list, we know they're elite players, right? Yes. In all of them in their own way, and that's why ordering them is always the fun part of it. But you mentioned it, it's a matter of sample size, it's a matter of situation. It can be supporting cast. It can be, we see even like a guy like Barkley this year, where you go, okay, he's on the Giants, he's on a team that can't block for him, and then he goes to a team that's maybe the best blocking team in football, and you see a different player as far as the result, but the talent was always there. So it's always putting all of those things together that makes it so much fun.
You use that word fun. I'm not sure you know what that means here in this context for ranking these players.
The numbers can be fun, Trevor. They can.
True.
Data can be fun.
I'm just messing with you. I think that with this exercise, because we're going to dive into certain parts of this list. You guys can go see the full list over at PFF.com. We were releasing them in increments of 10 throughout this week, but now with us recording this show on Friday, all of the 50 are out. So you guys can go see that if you want. We're not going to break down every single player and where they are on the list. Again, you can go see the reasoning if you go to PFF.com and read that. But we're going to kind of focus on what we believe a lot of the conversation is going to be around with this top 50. There's some offensive line talk, some wide receiver talk, some quarterback talk, obviously. And then when we get towards the end, we are going to mention a couple of players each on whether they made the list this year or not that we think are going to take jumps and are going to be even higher next season. So let's get into the first conversation that I think everybody is going to be talking about. The chat is already talking about this, and they don't even know what the order of quarterbacks is. But if you go into our top 10, our top 5 specifically, you will see that ranks 2 through 5 are 4 quarterbacks. And the reason why, we got 4 elite ones. No matter where the conversation is with quarterbacks today, where you have, okay, I've got this guy ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 are the same. And the reason why is because they are all so unbelievable. And we are so spoiled right now to have Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen playing the way they are. It makes the regular season a lot of fun. It makes the playoffs a lot of fun. And unfortunately for one of these guys with the competition so high at this position right now in the league, you look at guys like, again, Lamar. Burrow obviously has been to a Super Bowl, but he hasn't won one. Lamar hasn't been to one. Josh Allen hasn't been to one. You go, how can these two quarterbacks like Lamar and Josh Allen not even been to a Super Bowl yet at this point in their career? But they are ranked 2 through 5. The way that we have it is Patrick Mahomes at number 2, Joe Burrow at number 3, we have Lamar Jackson at number 4 and then Josh Allen at number 5. So what do you think about, the conversation around that being the 4 in the order that we have?
A couple of things. Obviously, once again, they're the top 4 quarterbacks in the league, and there's no question whatsoever on it. For me, and there's a lot of disagreements that are going to be had about this. For me, until further notice, until there's a significant drop-off, because, yes, the Chiefs' offense is less explosive, and they find a way to work through it anyway, right? And him and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid always find a way to win close games, including the playoffs, 12-0 in one-score games. I think that's still a big factor, right, when you talk about a guy who just finds a way to win every week. I think of the 4, I think almost on merit, like just even the way it used to be with Tom Brady for years on end, where it was just, he's the best quarterback in football. Maybe Aaron Rodgers won the MVP that year. Maybe Drew Brees threw for 5,000 yards, but Tom Brady was the best quarterback in football. That's where I'm at with Patrick Mahomes. He started for 7 seasons, and he's made a Super Bowl in 5 of them. That's ridiculous.
Right.
The floor is the AFC title game, and
Yep.
he's the number one reason that the Chiefs are still getting there every single year, even with a less explosive offense ever since they've lost. They traded Tyreek Hill, won 2 Super Bowls, lost this last year, but the Eagles were the best team in football. It is what it is. I'm in the boat that Mahomes is clearly one, and until one of the others at least wins the trophy, I'm not even having the argument that he isn't.
Yeah.
2, 3, and 4 now. Look, we have them in a certain order. But I wish I could just in these quarterback rankings just tie those other 3 guys for second, because there is a case for all of them. Since he's been drafted, Joe Burrow's the highest graded passer in the league. Lamar Jackson this year, first quarterback in PFF history with a 90 passing grade and 90 rushing grade in the same season, and Josh Allen's the first quarterback in PFF history with 5 straight seasons with a 90 grade. So there is a case for each of them.
Yep.
And honestly, at this point, I don't want to say I'm tired of the argument, but any order that those 3 guys are in from anybody, I just go, okay, fine. But Mahomes, to me, Mahomes has to be one of the group for, the ability's equal. Like, even this year, okay, slight drop-off, less explosive Chiefs offense. He's still 8th in PFF grade.
Right.
With the 3rd lowest average depth of target in football and all those things. I go, if he was 25th this year, he was, like, really bad, I would go, okay, maybe we're onto something. Maybe there's a drop-off. Maybe he can't handle the losses of Tyreek Hill in recent years and things like that. But he also lost his number 1 receiver in, week 3?
Yeah.
I mean...
And Travis Kelce, technically, in my opinion, you could sort of take that same conversation and say he sort of lost another number 1 wide receiver because Kelce was not the same player.
Right.
He just was not the same player for him.
And the more things erode around Mahomes, he's the one guy in the league who is still beating everybody else, even Allen and Burrow and Jackson head-to-head, without the tools that those guys have, especially, to me, Jackson and Burrow, at least at wide receiver.
Yeah, and look, we've already got people in the chat kind of talking about Lamar, and I could totally understand the case for Lamar and just how unbelievable he was last year, and really the last 2 years, right? Under Todd Monken over the last 2 years, he has been unbelievable. An elite passer and rusher last season. He has an elite passing grade over these last 2 years that he has been with Todd Monken. So Lamar is the one where, again, like you said, I'm not putting anybody above Patrick Mahomes right now. I'm just not doing it. Like, I understand, like, going into the 2025 season, especially with the Chiefs getting faster, more explosive, you're hoping that they're going to bring more explosive plays to their offense. Obviously, Andy Reid's still there as the head coach and offensive play caller, all of that. Like, it's hard to, with this being a little bit of a predictive list of where we have these guys going into 2025, I'm with you. I just can't not put Mahomes as the top quarterback here. Now, if you want to say that Lamar has the strongest case to be that next quarterback there, like we said, I could totally understand that. But a lot of what we do sort of leans on bigger sample sizes. And Lamar obviously is a multi-MVP type of a quarterback. And so it's not like the larger sample size hasn't been great for Lamar, but we're talking about razor thin margins here. And when you do that and you look at the fact that Joe Burrow is the highest graded passer that we have over the last 5 years. And when you look at his wins above average, wins above replacement metric, he is only behind Patrick Mahomes in that 5-year span. So, it's just that it's those razor thin margins with just the elite of the elite at the position right now. And so that is how we got to Burrow being number 2, Lamar being number 3 in this list. and then Josh Allen being that.
Yeah, they could be in any order, and I wouldn't argue too much with it. I really wouldn't. This is what we came at. If I could just in quarterback rankings tie them all for second, I would just do that. I know it's a cheater's way of doing it, but that's really where it's at. Is that I think Mahomes is the king, especially because of the Super Bowls and all of that. And the other three, let's be real. You mentioned it. The only reason all of them have not won a Super Bowl is because of Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, obviously in the Super Bowl against the Rams.
Yep.
I mean, he had the worst pass protection in the league, and they have to face Aaron Donald and Von Miller. That's even he can't overcome that. But you could have them in any order. I wouldn't even fire back too much on any of that. But I think there's a clear line between the top four and then everybody else.
Cheaty gave us a $5 super chat in the chat. We really appreciate it. Obviously, appreciate you getting on the show. Appreciate the super chat there. If Mahomes has another season like the past two, then he's no longer automatically the best quarterback. Can we agree on that? Certainly, I think so.
If it's a similar season to what he just had still, and it was still a top 8 season by the numbers, and he's clearly guiding that team to wins, then no, I don't. If there's this big drop off, if he came out this year and was like it was really bad and it was like a 65 passing grade and it's just not nearly on the same level,
right,
then yeah. But if it's the same as the season he just had, even with the supporting cast that he was dealing with without Rashee Rice, no, he's still one to me.
Okay, but
he would have to.
He could be one for you, but I think the purpose of sort of like what Cheaty is saying, and I do agree with this comment, is I go into these exercises and I'm like, no, Mahomes is one. Okay, like the conversation is Mahomes at one. Now we start to talk about where the other quarterbacks are kind of below him. If he has another season, like even what he had this past season, I at least don't go, yeah, he's one, we're not talking about it. Like if Lamar has another season where he's an elite rusher and passer, all of a sudden I go, okay, that's 3 now. That's 3 seasons where he's doing this. I would absolutely start to think about it. The numbers. Just like you have to give respect to Patrick Mahomes for what he has done, being able to stack good years, you also have to give the respect to the other guys.
Right.
And I would.
The numbers.
I'd open up that conversation.
The numbers alone, just the numbers alone for the last 2 years, would probably tell you Lamar Jackson, right? Mm-hmm. But there is more to. There still has to be the inferences. There still has to be the level of detail around the numbers where you go, okay. I mean, look, ask anybody, except maybe the good people here in Cincinnati. Ask anybody, hey, who's the guy you want? 2-minute drill, touchdown, win the game.
Oh, for sure.
We know who we're all taking.
You're taking Mahomes.
There's not a question about that. Who's the first guy that you want? And again, I'm not always one where it's like, okay, we should judge these guys based only on accomplishment. That's not the way to do it either. But he's got the combination of both, right? I mean, if let's say Lamar has that season and the Ravens finally win a Super Bowl, I might be in. I think there is. I'm not a quarterback.
Super Bowl criteria is tricky.
It's tricky. I'm not a quarterback wins guy. It's a team game.
You kind of sounded like it.
A little bit.
Sound a little bit like a quarterback win guy.
But the reason people knock Lamar is moments, right? Just like
for sure.
Just like where Mahomes excels in moments, and that's where a big stat for me. And it's not all him. It's Spags and the defense and everything. But 12-0 in one-score games last year. That's kind of impossible to do. And he continues in his own way to make the impossible. That Chiefs team was nowhere near the most talented team in the AFC this past year, but they get there anyway.
That's
right,
yeah.
and it's because you have him and because you have Andy Reid.
And on the flip side of things, that's why we get excited about a guy like Jaden Daniels, who I have a feeling that we're going to talk about later in the show when we talk about guys who can be higher on this list or on this list next season. It's because of moments, right? As a rookie, like he's already stepped up big in a lot of those moments. That Bengals game early on in the season, even the Buccaneers game to start things off. You got the Hail Mary, obviously, and then what they did on their run, facing the Buccaneers to open the playoffs, how great he was in that game. And then as the playoffs went on to get to the NFC Championship game, he's big in moments. And I think that carries a lot of weight when you talk about greatness and being stacked against some of the best in the NFL there. Okay, we could talk about quarterbacks forever, but I feel like we did at least a good job of sort of making our case for why we have those guys where they are. Somebody else in the chat was talking about, hey, you've got to have these players, and he listed off like a sort of a pool of players in the 12 to 15 ranking. And one of them was Saquon Barkley. We have Saquon Barkley just outside of our top 20, and we have Derrick Henry, I believe in the top 10. I believe he is 9th on this list here. He is 8th. And so we have Henry ahead of Saquon Barkley, which is in line with our runner of the year, which we gave that award to Derrick Henry last season. Now, Saquon, obviously, talk about moments, had a lot of the big moments, right? It's the behind the back hurdle, right? It's the long touchdown in the snow in the playoffs, right? Like Saquon had these big moments, and he was unbelievable playing on that Eagles team. Just such a A1 case of not every team in the NFL should be spending big money on a running back. But the Eagles should have, and they absolutely did, and it's a big reason why they won the Super Bowl. So Saquon Barkley's ranking there, I hope doesn't come off as a lot of disrespect, but there are some numbers that say that we like Derrick Henry better, right? And that's why that's why the gap is what it is. When you look at those two specifically against each other, Henry beat out Saquon Barkley in yards after contact per attempt, in missed tackles forced per attempt, and PFF rushing grade, just overall. So he was better in the three key metrics and categories that we like to lean on to really judge how a back is playing individually, because so much of the running game is predicated on your offensive line, right? And I don't want to take anything away from what Saquon Barkley did last year behind the best offensive line in the NFL, but when you're giving away sort of these awards and putting them in certain places in a ranking, I feel like we had to give Derrick Henry that respect this year for what he was able to do in Baltimore.
I think the gap could be closer between them. We probably could have had Saquon a few, but there's so many great players. It's like it's him versus Justin Jefferson
it's the
versus
problem with
Lane
numerical
Johnson.
lists. Every single time you go to the next one, guess what? It's a full number
there's
down.
so many great players between, and even his teammate A.J. Brown up at 16. It's like, do you want to flip the two of them? What do you value more, running or passing, and that team and everything like? But I was a huge proponent with Henry of getting him in the top 10. Because there's just been no, and you talk about sample sizes between the two. Saquon wasn't able to put up that production with the Giants because he just didn't have this support system around him. Derrick Henry has had that a lot in Tennessee with their offensive line, had it in Baltimore, and it's maybe the most talented backfield pair we've ever seen on a field together, but with Henry and Jackson. But you talk about Henry and just not slowing down, and you talk about sample sizes for what now, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And he just had, I would argue, his best season. When you look at the missed tackles forced, when you look at the rushing grades, when you look at the efficiency now in that offense with the best read option threat in football, right? The best running quarterback maybe we've ever seen. And then you have Derrick Henry between the tackles on it. I think he just needs the recognition. Obviously a future Hall of Famer, no question about that. But I was big on getting Henry into the top 10 because even now, he's 30 years old. There's just no slowing down. He's just the freight train that keeps coming. Saquon. Here's the other thing, too, with Saquon is the volume was absolutely ridiculous, right? Which is what makes the numbers so astronomical. And the explosive runs are great. And even by far, and you talk about moments, by far the most carries in football in the fourth quarter of games, right? Like he was the closer, right. And he had one of the all-time great seasons. I think when you take a sample, bigger sample size paints a different picture. You take a more than a 1-year sample size, I think it's pretty clear that Derrick Henry should be higher on this list than Saquon. I think Saquon could be a few spots higher. Maybe we should have got him into the top 20, into the teens somewhere. But I was big on getting Henry into the top 10 because the body of work 1 year and his entire career, we don't see many backs like that anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about the carries that he had and sort of those averages. So Saquon Barkley had 345 carries last year, which is just an insane amount.
Including the playoffs?
No. This is just regular season. Just regular season, he had 345 carries. Just over 2,000 yards in the regular season. He had 2,005, and he had 13 rushing touchdowns. Derrick Henry, he had 325 carries, 1921 rushing yards, and 16 rushing touchdowns. So if you give Derrick Henry Saquon's amount of carries, he gets more yards. So he had the common stats, he had the advanced metrics, he had the grades, he had everything. And again, I'm not trying to take away from a special season that was so much fun to watch from Saquon. But if you're asking me who was... Now, I think the pushback that I will understand on this list, we really wanted to give Derrick Henry his flowers for what he did last season. I mean, he had the highest rushing grade of any running back over the age of 30 that we have ever recorded. It was Fred Taylor at age 31 in 2007 had an 89.4 for that season. Raheem Mostert in 2023, he was 31 years old. He had a 91.3. Incredibly impressive. Derrick Henry last year, he was 30 years old, 93.1 rushing grade. That's unbelievable. So if you want to say to us as the pushback here, well, Derrick Henry is older, I think that he is going to regress sooner than Saquon Barkley, perhaps even this upcoming season. I'd push back on that a little bit, but I could at least say, okay, I hear you there. Philly's offensive line is still going to be unbelievable. I don't think Saquon is going anywhere talent-wise because he's not near the age that you would think that that would be the case. So I could understand that. But I wouldn't bring up 2024 in your arguments for Saquon being ahead of Derrick Henry because he basically wins in all those categories.
The biggest argument for it at least being closer is that Barkley is the better receiver.
For sure.
That is where, because Henry, the passing situations at this point, especially the last 2 or 3 years, he usually just comes off the field. They have Justice Hill, and rightfully so. They have Justice Hill. He's one of the best receiving backs in football. He should come off the field, right? And he stays fresh. That's why he stays fresh at 30, because there's not a whole lot of the passing work that needs to be had, right?
And I totally agree with that. And I'm not sitting here saying that Derrick Henry is a better receiver than Saquon Barkley, but certainly like the production-wise, it's not nearly as big of a gap as you think. I think some people believe that Derrick Henry doesn't catch the football. He had, where was this? Saquon Barkley had 33 catches last year on 43 targets, 278 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 22 targets, 19 catches, 193 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. So, like, yes, I'm not going to tell you that Derrick Henry is a better receiver than Derrick Henry, but it's not that big. Like, the gap isn't – it's not all or nothing. It's not like Saquon is who he is as a receiver and Derrick Henry never catches the football. He still does. So that does still exist in this game.
Yeah, and it's just not in Baltimore. Well, I shouldn't say it's not in Baltimore's offense. Just they use Justice Hill for those things, which is fine. You keep Henry fresh. Look, and I go back to also, you talk about Barkley and his value to the Eagles. The Ravens were 11-0 in games Henry ran for at least 90 yards. And once they got below that number, look, and I know it's Lamar. Lamar's the center of the universe in Baltimore. But when they won, it was because they had both of them going and Henry was the engine.
Can we talk about how good George Kittle is? Just before we get out of the top 10. Because,
look,
we're going to talk about the wide receivers because the wide receiver ranking here reflects how I had the wide receivers ranked, which was A.J. Brown as the number 1 wide receiver going into next year, Justin Jefferson number 2, Jamar Chase number 3. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. We'll also have the offensive line conversation, Penny Sewell being just outside of the top 20. I know people are going to want to talk about. But George Kittle being I think he's number 9 on this list. He's number 9. We had to get him into the top 10. A lot like what you talked about of Derrick Henry, we've got to get him in the top 10 for that recognition. What George Kittle does at the tight end position for that offense, for any offense, who he is as a blocker, who he is as a receiver, he is the ultimate, not only offensive weapon, but just force multiplier on the offensive side of the ball. He doesn't even need to get the ball. He doesn't even need to be an option to get the ball, to have a major impact on what the San Francisco 49ers do. Tight ends, I think, are one of those like alien positions in the game of football where you've got to be big, strong, fast, catch, block, run, balanced. You have to be so many things to be a great tight end at the NFL level. And George Kittle is all of those things. And that's why I agreed with what you said about getting Derrick Henry into the top 10. George Kittle is a top 10 player in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just is not another tight end in the league like him. And I found it interesting when you talk about there was that recent survey of scouts and executives and coaches that they had Brock Bowers as the number 1 tight end for what he did in the passing game. And look, yeah, he's already top 3 to 5, right? I love Brock Bowers. He just barely missed out on this list. He's going to be somebody we probably talk about later. But there just isn't another player like Kittle. Led all tight ends in receiving grade last year. The level of efficiency has actually been just as good, if not better, than Travis Kelce throughout his career. He just doesn't get the volume in a 49er offense that runs the ball more than that Chiefs team has since they've had Mahomes, right? So you're talking about the efficiency's always been there as a receiver. The blocking has always been there down in the trenches, and I think that's the part that makes the difference, especially when you talk about the PFF grades. You got a guy who led the league in receiving grade and was second among all tight ends in run blocking grade. We just don't have those players anymore. They're so specialized now. There's some that are big slots, guys like Mike Gesicki here in Cincinnati, and guys who get out. Kyle Pitts, right, playing out wide for the most part. He's basically a wide receiver. Then you have your blocking tight ends like your Charlie Warner's and Josh Oliver's of the world. George Kittle's all of that, all in one, right? And when he's not on the field for San Francisco, it completely changes their offense. There's so much of it that is based around him. So I think the fact, to me, because of the two-way ability, George Kittle's clearly the best tight end in football now.
Yeah,
he had an
I
argument.
agree.
Kelsey had the receiving volume in previous seasons, and he was so good as a receiver. There was an argument between the two, and then you kind of lean Kelsey because of the clutch and just the astronomical numbers he was putting up. But if you look at his entire career, if George Kittle got the same volume as Travis Kelce, the numbers would be flipped. He would be the guy who's climbing up the receiving ranks. Plus,
and he's a better blocker.
He's you could argue the best blocker in football at the position.
It was, again, for a guy who does a lot of work as a receiver. You mentioned the number one receiving grade for the tight end position last year. His 70.8 run blocking grade, second best among tight ends. You have tight ends that's their specialty, right? Like, that's why they're on the field, like, just to be a run blocker. There's a lot of these guys who don't know how to catch the football, aren't great with yards after catch, but they can just run through your face as a run blocker, and that's why they're on the field. And yet George Kittle was second best in the NFL while being the receiver that he was at that spot. You talked about just how well-rounded he was. 92.1 overall offensive grade from him last year, 5 points higher than any tight end in the NFL. It just goes to show you how dominant he is and how well-rounded he is.
How good he is as a blocker, it changes everything that Kyle Shanahan can do in his offense.
No
when you
question.
talk about staying in 11 personnel, keeping 3 wide receivers on the field, and having Kittle, who's essentially a 6 offensive lineman in the run game, right? There's other teams that can't do that. Their tight ends, they're coming smaller out of college nowadays. They're more focused on receiving ability, right, and receiving yards and things like this. That's where they make their money, is as receivers. But what George Kittle does schematically for Kyle Shanahan in that offense, what he's done for years in that offense, Kyle Shanahan doesn't need to put another tight end on the field, to a blocking tight end to supplement Kittle. Sometimes he'll do it anyway, and he's always had Kyle Juszczyk, but it changes everything that they can do in the run game, and that's why they've been so good at it for so many years.
So, okay, let's go on to wide receiver, because I wanted to hit on George Kittle, give him his flowers there, but wide receiver, I know a lot of people are going to talk about this, and it's going to sort of open up the same conversation that we had when I dropped the wide receiver rankings, and that was the fact that I had A.J. Brown as wide receiver 1 going into next year. I had Justin Jefferson number 2, and I had Jamar Chase at number 3. The truth is, all 3 are elite wide receivers. All 3 are takeover type of players. They're fantastic in the offenses that they are in, which is great. We always want the players who are as talented as they are to be able to flourish in offenses that know how to get the most out of their strengths there. We have A.J. Brown ranked 16th because we have, and you guys, again, you can see the full list over at PFF.com. We've got a lot of trench players, a lot of defensive and offensive linemen sort of in between where the top 10 ends and where we get to with these wide receivers. I got A.J. Brown at number 16. We have Justin Jefferson at number 18, and then we have Jamar Chase rounding things out at number 20. And for anybody that's like, how in the world can you have these guys like that low of the top 20? Go look at the guys that are above them. You've got trench players that are just unbelievable. Again, whether it's offensive or defensive linemen, it's so hard to not come off as like disrespectful when you have a numerical list and every name you got to go down another number. So it just kind of is what it is there. But just your thoughts there with those wide receivers. I feel like I've kind of talked a lot about it. Again, you can go read the wide receiver ranking article over at PFF.com, in which I explain a little bit of this. But to be honest with you guys, the sort of short and sweet version of it is A.J. Brown, whether it was last year or a 3-year sample size, number 1 wide receiver in the NFL in receiving grade versus single coverage. And that's really the thing that is the most difficult, right? You get another team's best corner matched up against you because you know that A.J. Brown is going to give you his best. You've got their best corner against A.J. Brown. He is not only coming away victorious most of the time, it's at an elite rate. It's above a 90 in a lot of instances, and sometimes even 92, 93. That's the receiving grade that we're talking about from a much larger sample size. I mean, when you look at wins above replacement as well, over the last 3 years, Justin Jefferson is second on this list, but A.J. Brown is right behind him, so he's above Jamar Chase, which is 5th overall. And so the reason why I kind of came up this the way that I did is because there are a lot of categories where, okay, when you talk about maybe contested catch situations or maybe some yards after catch stuff or things like that where you go, okay, I think Jamar Chase would be number 1 in this category. Okay, he is, but if I'm stacking these 3 wide receivers, A.J. Brown's number 2. And there are spots where, okay, maybe more vertical passing game. Yards after catches, I know a big strength of Justin Jefferson's as well. Missed tackles force is pretty huge for Justin Jefferson and what he's able to do. And you go, okay, well, Justin Jefferson might be number 1, but A.J. Brown's actually number 2 above maybe Jamar Chase. So the more that I looked at it, and I said this when we did the wide receiver episode and in the written article, I didn't go into that exercise thinking that I was going to have a hot take of A.J. Brown being wide receiver 1 and I wanted people to talk about something. It's just the more categories I looked at, the more I went, this dude is not only in the conversation with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, he is just as dominant and in some areas even more dominant in the parts of the game of playing wide receiver that matter a lot, specifically when you're beating single coverage situations.
Absolutely. And I think, look, it's kind of similar to the quarterback argument, right, with Burrow and Jackson and Allen, where it's you could put any three in any order, and I really wouldn't argue too much. They're all fantastic players. I think the big thing with Brown, two things we have to remember. This is a 3-year sample size that you're getting at here, where he's been absolutely, from the moment he stepped foot on Philadelphia's team, he's been a top 3 receiver, right? I mean, that's no question. I think you look at a matter of impact. Look where the Eagles have gone since trading for him. 2 Super Bowls, 1 victory this year. And on the flip side, look where, say, the Tennessee Titans have gone in their offense since trading him away, right? I mean, the level of impact that this type of receiver can have, it's astronomical, right? And it's all 3 of these guys are like. The other thing is, you want another efficiency argument in favor of him. Look at the regular season last year, Trev. Jamar Chase got 171 targets. Justin Jefferson got 150 targets. A.J. Brown missed a couple of games, but 95 targets. But the level of efficiency is just as good as those guys, if not better, that you go, okay, if this was stretched out, if you just look at yards and touchdowns, the way that we've done it for 100 years, you go, well, yeah, Jamar Chase is the best one. But you look at the efficiency. You mentioned contested catches. He's always been good after the catch, and it's not just this year. He's been great since he was in Tennessee, and he's taken that to another gear for 3 years in Philadelphia. There is an argument, and there can be a never-ending. We could do a whole episode just on this. We've already done it 2 or 3 times this offseason.
We have indeed.
We've done this a lot. It's a fascinating argument, just like the quarterbacks in any order. Maybe I would lean, to me, Justin Jefferson number 1. He's done great things for all 5 years of his career, right? Yeah. Chase has done it for 4 years already. They've been elite players, but I think when you look, your argument for A.J. Brown is efficiency and impact on his offense. Yeah. I don't have any issue with that. And if somebody else has them, those 3, I think those are clearly the 3 best receivers in football, right?
Yes.
Is that where we're at?
Yes.
You have those 3 in any order. I'm not going to argue too much. I think, and they're different types of players. You mentioned Chase.
That's the thing.
Chase is the ultimate athlete. Jefferson, I think, is the best route runner in football, and Browns is so good in those one-on-one situations. And that's the key to Philly's whole passing game, is him winning one-on-one. But it's not a complex, throw a bunch of schemes at your passing game. They go, hey, is AJ is he facing press man? Yeah. All right, chuck it up to him. And that's almost more impressive when you talk about the lack of schematics in their offense, right? Because they can do the simple things so well in Philadelphia because you have talented players on the outside like that.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat, and I'm glad that they brought that up, they said, like, AJ can't separate. Like, a lot of his catches are contested catch opportunities, and it's true. A lot of AJ Brown's best plays, most explosive plays down the field, a lot of them are contested catch opportunities, but I would say that that's more of a style of his than necessarily, you're seeing that there's some sort of lack of ability there, because when you look at open target percentage on a 3-year sample size over the last 3 years, his open target percentage is 55th percentile, and Jamar Chase is 52nd. Like, he has a little bit higher of an open target percentage than Jamar Chase. And so I just think that it's one of those things where if you like Justin Jefferson more because of maybe a little bit more versatile of a route runner, creates separation a little bit more, and Justin Jefferson's separation percentile against single coverage and against all coverage is a little bit higher. Like, that's just part of his game. So if you lean into separation a little bit more, I can understand why you'd be much more of a Justin Jefferson fan. But I think it is worth looking at the fact that a lot of people, and I don't blame them for this because I think this as well, marvel at Jamar Chase's ability to win one-on-one and win in those contested catch opportunities. But then when A.J. Brown kind of does it, and when he's in this conversation against guys like that, well, now it all of a sudden becomes like, well, A.J. doesn't separate. Well, neither does Jamar Chase, at a level where some of these other guys do. Him and A.J. Brown, the whole point of this exercise in the conversation is really to say A.J.'s a lot closer in a lot of categories than most people would think. So, again, if you've got Jamar Chase, the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, not going to fault you for it. If you got Justin Jefferson, not going to fault you for it. That's just how we got to our conclusions of how good A.J. Brown has been in contested catch situations against single coverage and creating explosive plays specifically. And to be honest with you, the drops for Jamar Chase this past year, kind of go into him being at 20 and being the 3rd wide receiver on this list just because it's heavy volume. I understand he was the Triple Crown winner. He's going to get a lot of targets. They're going to come with drops. But 10 drops last season was significantly more than, I believe, the 6 that Justin Jefferson had and only the 2 that A.J. Brown had, if I'm remembering that correctly. It might have been flipped, but
it is 2 for A.J., yeah.
It's just 2 for A.J. Again, another reason why I just had him a little bit higher. So that's how we get to that.
And I think because he's not the freakier speed athlete like Chase, you forget how good A.J. Brown is after the catch. And I just think in general, look, and I mentioned it as a 3-year sample with Philly, but he's got 5 straight years, Trevor, where his receiving grade is at least 88.8. It's elite stuff. Mm-hmm. He's on that level, and I think it might be because it's not always all that flashy, or now he plays in an offense that runs the football more than anybody else, but what they ask of him, when they ask him to do it, he executes darn near every time.
Sports Debate Arena with a $5 super chat on the show. We appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Obviously, thank you for the super chat here. Saying, waiting until you get there, but Dexter Lawrence led the NFL in sacks at the hardest position to generate pressure against the most double teams. He's saying that Dexter Lawrence over Chris Jones, Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa there. So we weren't going to talk about Dexter Lawrence specifically, but because you brought it up, we can talk about him. How do you feel about Dexter Lawrence here? Because Dexter Lawrence, we try to give him his respect. 14th overall, the 14th overall player in the NFL. Now, it is true. We have Nick Bosa, we have Micah Parsons, and we do have Chris Jones ahead of him. Chris Jones, we have number 6 overall. He's the number 6 player that we have on the PFF Top 50. Micah Parsons, we have at number 7. Nick Bosa, we have at number 12. And then Dexter Lawrence at number 14. The truth of the matter is, before we sort of dig into it, and I want to hear your opinion on all that, the truth of the matter is, these are Tier 1 NFL players.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to say that you like Dexter Lawrence more than those guys, you can. I think some of the larger sample size numbers, specifically I would say for Chris Jones, Chris Jones has a little bit of the Patrick Mahomes effect right now, where it's just like, dude, I think it's like 7 out of the last 8 years he has had an elite passing grade, which is, I mean, you want to talk, again, giving praise to Dexter Lawrence, the sacks, the pressures, the production against double teams on the interior as a 3 technique, as a nose technique. Chris Jones may not have been better than Dexter Lawrence last year at that, but he's been that for 7 out of the last 8 years, and it's hard to put him any further down on a list like this. But the Dexter Lawrence shout out is worthy.
Jones has at least a 90 pass rush grade in 6 of the last 7.
And
the one that wasn't was 80 in 86. Chris Jones is one of, he's just straight at either position, one of the greatest pass rushers of all time. And to me, as much a part of this Chiefs dynasty as Mahomes and Andy Reid and anybody else you might think of. You could, other than maybe Mahomes and Kelsey, he's probably the next player, and it's not even a gap. Without Chris Jones, there's probably 2 of those 3 Super Bowl victories they don't even have.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did you say? They've made 5 out of the last 7 Super Bowls, right? I mean, without Chris Jones, I think it's at least 2 less.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about he's the one guy.
Maybe we're overvaluing one position too much. Like maybe our wins above average.
But for them, look at the rest.
Oh, I agree.
Look at the rest of their pass rush options. When he's not on the field, their pass rush at times is non-existent. George Karlaftis is pretty clearly the second best guy, but at defensive tackle, they've never had another defensive tackle on the inside that can really complement him and take the double teams off him. And the number of different alignments is sometimes he is an edge player, right, in those obvious passing situations. Chris Jones, I think it's a matter of we've seen him now for 9 years, and he's basically never not been elite.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas Dexter Lawrence, look, if you're going with Dexter Lawrence, the last 3 years, he's been just as good. Absolutely. I mean, it's really, at the end of the day, you're right. It's kind of the Chiefs and the impact that he has on that team, and he's had for so long when you talk about a bigger sample size. But over the last 3 years, Lawrence is basically, once Aaron Donald retired, he's second right behind him.
Absolutely.
He's an unbelievable player.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the last, 3 years? I think 2022, 23, and 24, he leads all interior defenders with a 93.3 overall PFF grade.
It's the run defense that makes up that gap because he's become the best interior run defender in football.
Yeah. Okay, before we move on, because I want to talk about some of those offensive linemen as well. I know people are going to talk about sort of where they are on the PFF Top 50. Got to talk to all the parents out there and ask them a question. What does their child's future success look like for you? Maybe it's your kids owning their own business, them traveling the world. Maybe it's them just living in a house, comfortable, happy with their family. Whatever that looks like, you can help them achieve that with a kids investment account from Fabric by Gerber Life. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids investment account, you can start investing in your child's future today. Starts at just $20. There's no contribution limits to it. It's got tax advantages. All the funds are SIPC insured up to $500,000. There's no commission fees to it. It's just that low, flat monthly maintenance fee. And the best thing is it's all online. Setting that account up could take you as little as just 5 minutes. Then you just manage everything right from your phone. The funds can be used for everything. It doesn't have to be the things that I kind of was talking about a little bit earlier, when it comes, okay, maybe it's a big purchase like a house or a business or something like that. When they're a little bit younger, maybe you just need a little bit of help and have this fund available to take them to sporting events or give them music classes, tutors, tuition, things like that. And then when they're adults, maybe it is things like I mentioned, or maybe buying their first car, first house, things like that. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are mentioned by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, offensive line conversation. Let's talk about this here. So for the offensive linemen, let me make sure that I've got everybody here. The first offensive tackle that we have is Jordan Mailata. Jordan Mailata won our offensive lineman of the year. Did he win overall offensive player of the year? I can't remember. But, I mean, an insane PFF grade. An insanely high PFF grade.
The second best ever in a qualified season by a tackle behind Trent Williams in 2021.
Right? Yeah. So we have Jordan Mailata as the top-ranked offensive tackle. We have him at number 11. If you believe that he is going to still be the dominant run blocker that he was last season, there's reason to believe that, and the data proves it, he's getting better as a pass protector. So this one does have a little bit of a projection to it of like, man, if that's what we saw from Mailata last year, he could be unbelievable once again this year. We have Tristan Wirfs right behind him on the rankings, but number 13 overall. We then have Rashawn Slater as the number 3 offensive tackle at number 15 there. Trent Williams does come in at number 17. Lane Johnson's 19. And then Penei Sewell is at number 21. I think that people will be a little shocked to see Penei Sewell just outside of the top 20. An unbelievable run blocker, like somebody who is a complete tone setter for your team, fits into the culture, and honestly, the game plan of what Detroit really wants to do every single week. Not quite the pass protector that some of these other guys are, a little bit higher on the list, but your thoughts overall on, we talked about how lucky we are to have such great quarterback play. These offensive tackle names that I mentioned are just unbelievable players. Trent Williams, maybe one of the best over the last decade. Lane Johnson might be the best right tackle of all time when you look at his career. Jordan Mailata having the season that he is. Tristan Wirfs being as unbelievable as a pass protector as he has been in his career. So your thoughts overall, and Sewell being a little bit lower amongst that group.
I mean, honestly, you talk about him being lower in the rankings, but any of those 6 guys could honestly have an argument for the number 1 spot. They could. I mean, but I think that's the thing is if you value the pass protection or the run blocking, you could argue right now that Sewell's best run blocker in football, right? You could absolutely argue that. 95.1 run blocking grade in 2023, 91.5 last year. Pass blocking, he's maybe not quite as good a pass protector as Tristan Wirfs, as Lane Johnson, but it's not very far off either. He's grading in the mid to high 70s every year, and he's only given up 4 sacks over the last 3 years, right? So we're not gonna sit here and say Penei Sewell's he's not bad at anything. Honestly, he's probably a B+ pass protector, an A+ run blocker, and if you value it the other way, if you value a guy like Tristan Wirfs, I know you do, who might be the best pass protector in all of football, and he's done it actually at both tackle positions, then you go, okay, which way does it go? If you're someone who likes your big maulers and you like run blockers, you've got Sewell in the top 3. If you want pass protectors, you've got Tristan Wirfs and Lane Johnson and those guys a little bit higher, right? So I think it's a matter of what you value, but they're all elite players. I mean, you have 6 tackles you just mentioned in the first 21 players, and a lot more that probably could be it's just proof that it's a premium position now, and it's more valued than ever to have on both sides. I want to mention that too with Sewell and Johnson at right tackle. There's forever in football, there has been this thing where, left tackles are more valuable than right tackles. It's not the case.
Not the case anymore.
It's equal. No. If you're great look at the teams with the great tackle duos, right? Decker and Sewell, Johnson and Mailata, Slater and Joe Alt in LA. I mean, if you're locked in on both sides, you're living. I mean, there's no other way to put it. The fact that right tackle now has been made so valuable that we're seeing more and more kids just going, hey, we need you to switch sides, like Sewell did. Sewell was drafted. He was a left tackle at Oregon, right? And they go, look, we already have Decker. We need you to play on the right side. And he's still doing it at an elite level, and he's basically fulfilled everything he was supposed to be as a prospect. It's unbelievable, right? So it's not a knock at all. He's only 6 as a matter of, hey, look at the guys in front of him. Right. But to have 6 tackles in the first 21 is just incredible. It shows you the talent pool we're dealing with here.
It really does. And to Sewell's credit, we think that run blocking is very much a stable part of playing offensive tackle, right? If you are a dominant or I think it's just offensive line in general, I would say, because this is the case why, Chris Lidstrom and Creed Humphrey are top 30 on this list. It's because of how dominant they are in the run game as well and how consistent they are there. When you are consistently elite and dominant, that is something that you are easily able to project as something that you could just say, okay, this is a guarantee that they're also going to continue to be good. Pass protection's a little bit different. It's a little bit more up and down. It's high variance by nature. But when you are a great run blocker, it's the reason why Penei Sewell has the highest wins above average or wins above replacement over the last 3 years at offensive tackle. Now, those other guys, like I said, like Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Trent Williams, Tristan Wirfs, they're very close to where Sewell is. So Sewell is number 1 in PFF WAR, but the gap isn't huge between him and the rest of those other guys. But I think it just comes down to, like you said, like a couple of those other players that we mentioned have just graded better as a pass protector, and that's sort of how we got to this point.
And I think my favorite part of this now is it seems the longevity for a great offensive lineman is increasing, right? When you see guys like Trent and Lane Johnson, how they're aging into their 30s, but you look at 4 of these 6 guys, right? Mailata's 28, Wirfs is 26, Slater's 26. And Penei Sewell right now is 24 years old. Mm-hmm. You have 4 of the top 6 tackles in the NFL that are 28 or younger. We're going to be watching possibly all of them for the next 10 years. And it's usually, eventually, obviously, there's going to be the decline. We're not seeing it with Trent Williams yet, obviously. But
we've got people in the chat who are like, man, Trent is too high. He's too old. He's going to regress a little bit. He hasn't yet. And people are going to mention the fact that he's missed game due to injury, right? So I think durability with age, maybe you factor that in a little bit more with what we have seen with Trent Williams. But injury is a tough thing to project one way or the other. Like it's hard to say, like, yeah, this guy's going to be fully healthy outside of some of the the Iron Men in the NFL who have played for forever. Like Cam Jordan's one who comes to my mind, right? I mean, like Cam Jordan's been on the field. Does he still have the starter streak? I can't remember. But anyways, he's just played an unbelievable amount of games, so you get to lean on it when the sample size becomes big enough. But I'm also not going to sit here and say, yeah, Trent Williams is obviously going to get hurt next year.
When you're just like Mahomes, when your drop off is, okay, let me look in the rankings. Trent Williams, he was 7th best in the NFL in PFF grade last year instead of
any position
of any offensive tackle.
Oh, okay.
Okay, he was 7th instead of 1st this year.
Right.
It's still it's a down year for him is an 85.6. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're declining for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just he's another one. He's just, to me, he's just going to be a freak until he's not. I just have to see it.
I mean, I'm with you. I can't put Trent Williams that much lower.
And again, sample size. You go, since he's gone to San Francisco, this is 5 years now in San Francisco, and over the last 5 years, who's best tackle in football? It's Trent Williams. I don't even flinch. No question.
Sauce Gardner, Patrick Surtain. We saved this one because we knew we had to talk about it.
This is a hot one. So
we got Sauce at 23 overall, and we've got Surtain at 27. That's CB1 and CB2 if you're just looking at sort of these positional rankings. Patrick Surtain is coming off of a Defensive Player of the Year award. Obviously, an unbelievable season for him. And we, to be clear, we also gave Patrick Surtain the Coverage Player of the Year award when we did our PFF awards. If you're just looking at 2024, absolutely, Patrick Surtain is that guy. But when you look at that 3-year sample size, Sauce has a higher overall coverage grade. He has a higher wins above average. And he has the most forced incompletions in the NFL. So ball production, value, overall PFF coverage grade. Now, I think we can get into a little bit of what is asked of these guys, or what has been asked of these guys and their types of coverages over the last 3 years. But just your thoughts about giving Sauce the lean there just because of that 3-year sample size where, look, Patrick Surtain was the best cornerback in football last year.
Yep.
Sauce was the best corner in football for 2 straight years as a rookie and a sophomore in the NFL. And I think that also holds a ton of value here. So where, again, it's sort of like the running back conversation that we were having with Saquon and Henry. it's not necessarily, we're not trying to come off as disrespectful or like, hey, you guys shouldn't like Patrick Surtain as much as you do. We're not trying to say that at all whatsoever. It's just a little bit more of a case of we like bigger sample sizes here at PFF because they are often quite predictive of what could be your future.
We say it all the time. Sample size matters.
It does.
There it is.
It does.
But, I mean, again, you're absolutely right. If you go off just 2024, yeah, it's Surtain, right? If you go off a 3-year sample, it's Sauce Gardner. And I think the thing for me with Sauce Gardner and the 3-year sample is that cornerback is arguably, especially with statistics and grading and things like that, it's arguably the most volatile position on the field year to year, right? You get a guy like, say, Deron Bland in the year that he had 2 years ago and then significant drop-off last year because of the lack of, setting a pick-6 record, right? But you look at Sauce Gardner at the position of volatility, he's been the most stable force of any cornerback in football from the moment he stepped on the field 3 years ago with the Jets, right? He's taking that volatility out of it. And again, if it's old school and you're just looking at, okay, who's the best corner, who has the most interceptions? It's not him, but that's why we have these other metrics. You mentioned it. Highest WAR over the last 3 years, best coverage grade over the last 3 years, most forced incompletions over the last 3 years. So he's not getting the freaky interception totals because you look, and I don't blame him one bit. Teams are going into game plan against the Jets, and they just go, hey, just don't throw it number one. Why would we? That's a losing battle. There's just no reason. He's 6'2", 6'3". He's long. He's fast. He can do everything. His technique is fantastic. I know some people say, okay, he gets a little handsy with the penalties, but it's such a small thing. I think last year had 10 penalties. It's a small thing. And if you want to make the run defense argument, okay, fine. Surtain wins that battle. He's a little bit better in run defense, a little bit better of a tackler. But I think when you look at the 3-year sample size and coverage, I don't think there's been a better coverage defender in the NFL the last 3 years than Sauce Gardner. And it's, we used to have these arguments. It's same thing with the Jets way back in the day with Darrelle Revis, right? Eventually it was just like, hey, you're not going to throw at him.
Right.
And the numbers, he's not going to get inflated interception totals because he's just like, he's been dealing with this since college. Remember his last year at Cincinnati, his teammate, Kobe Bryant, won the Jim Thorpe Award, even though Sauce was clearly, because I don't think Sauce had an interception his final season at Cincinnati, because teams were going, we can't even throw it in that direction. So Kobe Bryant gets, I think it was 6 or 7 interceptions, something like that, and he wins the Thorpe because he gets the interceptions, even though Sauce is the best player on the field, right? So, and that's what somebody like Gardner can do is make everybody else in his secondary better, make his entire defense better in that manner. So when you talk about the level of impact, and even our secondary guy John Costco did this too. When you dig into the advanced coverage grades and the separation metrics, 3-year sample, it's Sauce Gardner.
Yeah,
it is. Last year, not as much, little drop off, but still pretty darn good, near the top 20 in coverage grades. So I think when you take that whole, and they're extremely close. If you have Surtain because he just won Defensive Player of the Year and he was better in 24, fine. But the 3-year sample tells you Sauce Gardner, by the numbers, has been the best corner in football.
Yeah, and it's not like, he's old and we're seeing a drop-off. These are two of the, youngest star corners that we have in the game. I think Trent McDuffie is in here as well, Derek Stingley Jr. Those are guys that you bring up when you have that conversation, some of the best young corners in the league. But, and Stingley, another guy who had a great year last year, who I think we're going to be talking about within this conversation next year. But that's how we landed with Sauce Gardner ahead of Patrick Surtain, just that bigger sample size there. Two guys that I want to hit on before we round out the show with some guys that we think are going to be a little bit higher on this list. Two Philadelphia Eagles that I know there was a lot of conversation around. Jalen Carter, he comes in at number 45 on the ranking. And then Jalen Hurts, last guy that we got in this list, at number 50 as the Super Bowl winning quarterback this year. So Jalen Carter, look, if you just look at him as a pass rusher, he'd be way higher than 45. But who he has been as a run defender, it's not like the situation that we've talked about with like Mahomes or Trent Williams or something. It's like, like bad categories for them really aren't that bad. It really is a hot and cold thing with Jalen Carter, where he has been fantastic as a pass rusher, 14.2 pass rush win percentage, pass rush grades above 84 over the last 2 seasons, 89.3 cumulative passing grade, is third amongst interior defensive linemen, behind only 2 incredible players that we already talked about in Chris Jones and Dexter Lawrence. But he has a 61.0 run defense grade over the last 2 years. It's like he is nearly unstoppable as a pass rusher. And when it comes to just run defense downs, he is not that same sort of solo impact type of a player. And so that is why he's a little bit further down on the list. And I think a lot of people might look at Jalen Carter at number 45 and think, there's no way you could name 44 better players than him. but it's just that variance that he has as a run defender versus a pass rusher that opens up that conversation of him being lower than I think that he should be, really, with his talent.
Again, it depends what you value. If you value them equally, there's going to be some guys like a Dexter Lawrence where he's great at both, and maybe he is at the level of pass rusher too that Jalen Carter is. But I think there's a couple of things just holding back the numbers, right? The run defense. And we're not saying he has to be elite someday in run defense. Like even Chris Jones this year only had a 64 run defense grade, and the pass rush carries it. It's really the same mold, but Carter being down there at a 55.8 run defense grade and some of the worst tackling metrics among defensive tackles here this past year. So those go into it. That goes into the overall grade being a little bit lower. And on the surface, on the flip side, there's going to be some people that go, well, you only overall graded a 73 last year. What's the deal? Well, it is. You can't just go with that, right? You can't. There's certain players that are higher graded than Jalen Carter, and I go, well, no, I would take Jalen Carter. Even his teammate Milton Williams, right? He was graded higher overall than Jalen Carter this past year. But the level of talent at such a young age, right? I mean, it just the path that he's on as a pass rusher is that Chris Jones type of path, right? And you understand the talent, and you just go, hey, if he does fill that gap in run defense, he will be a top 15 player on this list very, very soon. And he's still incredibly young. I mean, we're only 2 years into Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
And we're already saying he's a top 50 player in the NFL. Just incredible stuff from him. I just think, that's the fun part is you go, if that part gets rounded out, that he's going to be top 15, not just next year, but for many years, right? We're going to be talking about him like we do with Chris Jones every year now, we do with Dexter Lawrence, Cam Hayward every year, right? Certainly he's going to be in that category. So I do think he's only going to move up from here.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's a great place to start after only his second season.
Of course. And then his teammate, Jalen Hurts, who wins the Super Bowl this year, he comes in at number 50, Super Bowl winning quarterback as the last name on this list, I think would be shocking to some people. But when you look at Jalen Hurts, again, we're looking at full picture. We're looking at full sample size here. And for a lot of last season, Jalen was inconsistent as a passer. And I think the rushing grades and the rushing production are good from him when it comes to those higher EPA per play averages because of the tush push, right? Because of how unbelievable he is at the goal line. And again, look, he's an incredibly strong quarterback, and I don't want to take anything away from him there. There's a reason why the Eagles are better at this than everybody else. The offensive line goes into it, there's no doubt about it, but so does Jalen Hurts. I mean, being as strong as he is to be able to push the pile, to be able to convert those tush pushes on the goal line, on third and fourth down situations, basically anywhere on the field. So that is definitely part of his game that I want to give him his respect for. But as a passer, he had 22 big-time throws last season, but he had 19 turnover-worthy plays. And he really gets those 22 big-time throws, and he really gets that that ratio on the positive side of things. That didn't happen until the end of the season. And again, he showed up when he needed to. He showed up in the NFC Championship game. He played well, and he showed up in the Super Bowl. But the whole picture of Jalen Hurts is it was worrisome. It was worrisome through, I think, the first 12, 13, 14 weeks of the season last year. And just like we want to give him credit for showing up in those big games at the end and obviously capturing a Super Bowl trophy, you have to take the rest of that into account as well. And that's just 2024. He was inconsistent as a passer last year too. And there was worries about sort of is he efficient enough of a passer to get you where you needed to go? Obviously the answer is yes with them winning the Super Bowl this season. But that's sort of how we got to where we did with Jalen Hurts. And it's the rushing ability, but it's also some of the passing inconsistency. We give him credit for that playoff run that he had and how he was able to put it together very well over those last two games. But things are more than just those two games, especially when the ranking is about what you're going to be next season. The bigger sample size of Jalen Hurts shows a lot more inconsistency than it does that top-end play at the end of the playoffs.
Inconsistency as a passer, but this is the part now where we really have to flesh out, just like with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, the value as a runner and what that does then for the overall PFF. Because, look, the tush push, yes, some people might not like it, and some people might think it's cheesy, and they just always go to it when they need 1 yard. But that's a problem that's uniquely tied to Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. They're the two teams, Buffalo and Philly, that do it by far more than anybody else, right? So it is a unique asset as a player, and even in general as a runner. Going back to his college days, he's always been an elite runner. So it's we have all of that, and sometimes it's inconsistent. Sometimes Philly's passing game over the last 2 years, there's times where it's been a little bit ugly, right? But then I go back and look at the 3-year sample size of PFF grades, and Jalen Hurts is 6 among all quarterbacks. So the passing grade is lower. The rushing grade is top 5.
Mm-hmm.
The overall value of it is where you start to have that argument, right? He's certainly, I wouldn't put him with the top 4, right? We know he's not one of those.
No, but he
4.
was 5. He was in that next quarterback there on our quarterback ranking list.
It's a good argument, and I think look, to me, and I know this has been the most hot button topic. To me, I would probably have him somewhere between 7 and 9. I think Jaden's great. I think Justin Herbert's great. I know there's some people that hate on Justin Herbert all the time, but I think Hurts is absolutely top 8 or 9, somewhere in there. It again depends what you value. If you're taking the whole picture of it, and also 19 turnover-worthy plays this year, but generally pretty darn safe with the football, right?
It's true. It's true.
He's a guy who's never turned the ball over at a high rate. A little more risky this year, throwing into some tight coverage, and especially when things got off structure, a little bit of issue with pressure. But when you look at, I think we have to start looking at Jalen Hurts more as, and I don't mean this offensively, how high his floor is. Anywhere he's been, Alabama, Oklahoma, Philadelphia.
For sure. Yes, that goes
They
into it.
win boatloads of games.
Yep.
Because generally, he's a low-risk quarterback, but I think risk aversion is something that doesn't get talked about enough. It's why we have turnover-worthy play rates. Why was Aaron Rodgers there's several reasons Aaron Rodgers was so elite for such a long time, but what was he better at than anybody else actually? He would never give the darn football
Yeah,
away.
he wouldn't turn it over.
Hurts this year it's spiked a little bit, but Hurts is the same way, where you do walk on the field any given week with Jalen Hurts and you go, well, yeah, at the very least we're going to be in this, right? And we're probably going to win because we have a boatload of talent around him. That's maybe an argument against him a little bit, is the best supporting cast, best team in football. But why is that his fault? That's what Howie Roseman should be doing, is building the best team in football. And he's got a quarterback that he knows generally is not going to lose him games.
I agree 100% there. His floor is very, very high as a quarterback, and I think that's why we gave him that respect in the quarterback rankings that John Costco did for us. So let's end the show talking about 2 guys that we think are going to be a little bit higher on this list next year. The first guy that I'm going to bring to the table is somebody who is on this list already, Jared Verse.
Yep.
We had Jared Verse at number 47, and I mean, this guy could take a leap into these rankings. I mean, we could have Jared Verse as a top 40, maybe even top 30 player even next season because of what we saw from him just as a rookie last year. 81 total pressures, trailed only Trey Hendrickson last season. He had an above 80.0 pass rush grade and run defense grade. And the only real blemish against him, I think he had 4.5 sacks. I think it was like 4.5 sacks on the season. He had a 30% missed tackle rate in pass rush situations, which is kind of, I mean, like, Verse has a little bit shorter of arms, and that sort of goes into it when we talk about arm length for pass rushers. It's not just about executing those long arm moves and keeping the distance in the space between you and your blocker, often the offensive tackle. But it also, we talk, an advantageous part about having long arms is you're able to wrap up tacklers a little bit better. When you have shorter arms, you just don't have the ability to do that nearly as well. And sometimes you get a higher missed tackle rate because of that. You got to think of all the positive and negative physical things that come with having longer arms. For Verse, he's got shorter arms, but 30% missed tackle rate in passer situations is crazy. If he cuts that down even to like 20, he's like a double-digit sack guy as a rookie. And we're talking about somebody who would have had an elite pass rush grade, still as many pressures as he had. And if that's what we got from year 1 of Jared Verse, who I remember getting to interview Jared Verse after his junior season at Florida State, going into his final year there. And no, I think it was actually him going into his junior year. It was before he like really broke out in a big way. And just the mentality that this guy had throughout the entire interview. I'm asking him about sort of where he's from and his journey. He's got a really cool journey, coming from Albany and being an FCS All-American and then going to Florida State and all that kinds of stuff. And he's got a really cool journey. But the theme throughout the whole thing was he wants to be great. Like, he wants to work to be great. He wants to put in that time. He wants to, study the best in the game. He wants to always be in the weight room. And who was it? Teron Armstead, right? Teron Armstead just retired, and I cannot remember which podcast he went on, but they basically said, the question was, now that you're retired, who are you happy you never have to see again, right? Who are you happy that you never have to go, oh, God, we're playing this team or this player? And he named some heavy hitters. I think he named a couple of heavy hitters. And then he named Jared Verse. And he's like, nope. So glad I never have to see that guy again. Jared Verse is a rookie. We're talking about Teron Armstead here. Terron Armstead is one of the most steady tackles in the NFL, most talented tackles in the NFL when he's been healthy. And he went, nope, can't wait to never play that guy ever again. I just think that he's 47 right now, but my goodness, the numbers, the trajectory, and just who Jared Verse is, I think he could be so much higher on this list as early as next year.
The talent and production to very soon be in the top 10. And you mentioned it. He had the most missed tackles of any defensive lineman last year. And the fun part is that it's not that he's not getting off the blocks. He still had an 81 run defense grade. We know all about him as a pass rusher. But I think that's the part that impresses me the most as a rookie right away is the balance. Trev, only 3 defensive linemen in the NFL had both an 80 pass rush grade and an 80 run defense grade. TJ Watt, Dexter Lawrence, Jared Verse.
Not bad.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, you're talking playing at the level of guys who might be future Hall of Famers and they're current All-Pros and all. And, you know, TJ Watt now is the highest paid defensive player in the league, right? And Jared Verse is darn near matching what he's doing, leading the league in pressures. I mean, because we had all the quarterbacks and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix and everything we had to talk about with this rookie class, it still feels like we didn't talk about how elite Jared Verse is enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, you talk about what the Rams have done. Aaron Donald retires. What are they going to do? Oh, no, we get Jared Verse. That's fair. I mean, in Kobe Turner and all the other guys at Braden Fisk and everybody else. But Jared's the guy that makes it go. And he's even talked about himself this offseason. He goes, oh, just wait. I left a lot on the table last year.
And he knows it. And again, I just think his mentality, that so much of that goes into greatness. Like, you want to bet on guys that are unbelievably talented, but you want to bet on guys that know they're unbelievably talented and want to maximize the talent that they have. Jared Verse has, I think, throughout his entire life that I've talked with him about, that I've read about him, like that has been who he has been. He's always just wanted to maximize his talent wherever he has been, and I think he could be a special player. What about you? Who do you got?
I'll stay on the list, and then maybe we'll get to a couple from off it. Aiden Hutchinson, I think, is the most interesting player. It may be in the entire NFL
for
this
sure.
year. I mean, if he got to finish the season last year, he might have been in the top 5. Honestly, 38% pass rush win rate when 20 is elite and 25 is Myles Garrett.
Yeah, if he doesn't get hurt and he's even flirting with 30% pass rush win percentage at the end of the year, he's probably 7th on this list.
If he did for a whole season what he did those first 5 games, he would have had the greatest edge season we've ever seen.
Just
correct. Nuts. He was going to he was going to break every record in our books at least.
Yep.
And he would. And you remember, preseason I picked him to win Defensive Player of the Year. I was feeling pretty good about it, right? And I just go, you look at what he did in 2023, a 91 pass rush grade. He became an elite player in 2023, and probably, I forget, you'd have to go back after that season to see where he ranks, but probably right around this range. And if he had gotten a finish, I mean, this is, to me, I would argue the most suspenseful injury return in the NFL this year, because what he does for this Lions defense gives him a chance to win a Super Bowl. Realistically, when Hutchinson got hurt last year, that's when you started to worry. You go, oh, I don't know if the Lions can win the whole thing, because he's the key to their defense, right? I mean, he's just an elite one-on-one pass rusher, one of the best in the league. So I think, and we had a little bit of trouble placing him because of that. We go, what do we do? Again, small sample, 5 games last year were maybe the greatest 5 games I've ever seen an edge rusher play, but broken leg, coming back from a major injury, obviously. Can he be that same guy? If he can, the Lions are a Super Bowl contender. If not, we have to start asking other questions.
Who's another guy who's not on the list?
2 more quarterbacks.
Your boy Jaden.
2 more.
I knew. I left him for you.
The 2 quarterbacks, and obviously I vouched for both of them. It's Jaden Daniels and it's Justin Herbert.
Definitely.
I was a big fan of trying to get Justin Herbert on this list, because I don't think because the surface level numbers in the Chargers, they want to emphasize balance in their offense. And Justin Herbert, I think, played the best football of his career last year. The efficiency, pushing the ball downfield, best quarterback in football in 10-plus yard throws. This has been obviously a huge argument. Some people don't even have him top 10 among quarterbacks. I would have him 5 or 6, honestly. I think I think if they've staled on Justin Herbert, and I get it. Okay, he hasn't had the moments. And yes, he was bad in the playoff game. I also think Houston was the worst possible matchup for the Chargers in that game with their pass defense and the way that they got things rolling. It is what it is. They got beat.
Houston's going to be a bad matchup for everyone.
For a lot of teams with the way their pass defense is, maybe the best in the league this year, but Herbert was spectacular all year. And I know that he didn't have 50 touchdowns and he wasn't setting records like Lamar Jackson was or any of that, but the level of efficiency and the way that he picked up that offense after the first few weeks, he was terrific. You could easily argue that he was the 5th best quarterback in football last year, beyond the first 4, obviously. I mean, I feel like he gets disrespected too much. I don't know where you sit on this with Herbert. He was a guy I was vouching for heavily to get on here, and it was just tough. I mean, there's only 50 spots, right?
Yeah, I really like Justin Herbert. I think talent-wise, all the talent in the world to potentially be talked about like in the same conversation in some years as the 4 that we have at the very top, right? Like, I think he is that talented. Moments are the things with him, right?
But I think before Jim Harbaugh got there, it's all dysfunctional.
No.
The coaching, the offense, he had a different OC every year. The stability of Harbaugh and Roman is going to – I think it's very soon going to change this narrative.
Right. That's what's in the way, though, of I don't think – he's got to get, better as a passer. He's got to get more instinctive in the run game. Like, we've seen all of that stuff from him at an extremely high level. He's been an elite passer many times, in many instances throughout his career. It's just, again, the moments, the big moments. That's when you really go, okay, now I have full faith that not only is this guy talented enough to hang with some of the better quarterbacks in the NFL and make some playoff runs, but now I know that he's got the mental fortitude to do it as well. And I think Jim Harbaugh absolutely helps him in that regard, and I think that is coming for Justin Herbert. So I do agree with you there. Jaden Daniels as well. Jaden is somebody who can very obviously, from the season that he had this past year, jump into this list. A couple of guys that people in the chat have been talking about, Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors, Derek Stingley. Derek Stingley was one of those guys that kind of like just missed this top 50.
It was Stingley. I'll give you another tight end, Trey McBride.
It's true.
I think right now you're top. If the decline is gonna continue on Kelsey, I think the 3 best tight ends in football pretty clearly then are Kittle and then McBride and Bowers.
I would have had Bowers in next. Okay. If we were putting another
just for what he did with a terrible quarterback situation as a rookie.
As a rookie.
Setting all records.
Right. So I think I would have had him next. Sports Debate Arena, give us a $2 super chat. We appreciate you doing that once again. He asked, where would you, like Jaden, Brock, Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr. is another one.
Yes.
If Brian Thomas Jr. takes a leap and continues to build off of that rookie year, that would be great for him. The last guy that I'll shout out is Nico Collins. And Nico Collins is on this list. He's 37, which is a lot of respect in and of itself. But when you look at Collins, the reason why I loved A.J. Brown and wanted to shout him out sort of in these wide receiver rankings, Nico Collins is kind of going along that same path. The last 2 years, he has been an elite receiver. He has an elite receiving grade in each of the last 2 seasons. If you stack 3 in a row, now all of a sudden, like, okay, you're special. You're talking about being in the top tier of those wide receiver ones in the NFL. And specifically, Nico Collins' receiving grade in single coverage situations over the last 2 years trails only A.J. Brown. So he's even ahead of Jamar Chase in that category, which is special for that to be the case. So I think that Nico Collins is another one who, if he gives us another elite receiving year, I don't know how you don't have him in the conversation with some of those top
guys. I don't know if it's because he's a third-round pick instead of a former first-rounder, or he plays in Houston and just not as big a name. But I think when you talk about the number one receivers, obviously Chase, Jefferson, Brown, guys like CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, like you mentioned, I think we have to really start almost reflexively talking about Nico Collins in that category. He is a legitimate ace number one receiver that C.J. Stroud can go to in any situation. And last year, the Texans' offense, with the injuries they had at receiver, there was so many games where the entire idea of their passing game was to just find ways to isolate Nico Collins, just like it is for A.J. Brown, right? Yeah. So he's on that path. Obviously, as a third-round pick, his first 2 years, he had to get on the field and get more reps. But I think now what we've seen from him the last 2 years, when you're making who are the best receivers in football type of list, he's required. If you don't know who Nico Collins is at this point, you're doing it wrong, right? He's in that category with those elite names.
Oh, Drake also brought up Joe Alt in the chat. Joe Alt,
that'll be a next year one. Yeah, he's going to get that because I think it's going down the same path where, just like at Notre Dame, true freshman year, very good for a freshman, and then was the best tackle in the country. Yeah. Slater and Alt's ridiculous. That's about to be ridiculous.
It is quite the offensive tackle duo. Somebody in the chat said, how do you solve a problem like Kyle Pitts? We don't have the time for that, though. That's a whole nother episode. We appreciate everybody watching. Again, if you want to see the full list, you can see that over at PFF.com. If you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, make sure you guys go get one right now. You can see all of the information that we talked about here on this show for yourself. You can do your own research, have your own top 50 going into the 2025 season. If you do, love for it if you share it with us. We'd love to go back and forth with you guys. Appreciate everybody watching and listening. For Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying see you guys next time.